G'day everybody, I'm known only as the Accumulator of Information, and you can call me the Accumulator. I'm a government operative that investigates supernatural hotspots, global aerospace infrastructures, and locations where conspiracies take place.
And you can call me the Astronaut. I am the Accumulator's assistant. We met when he interviewed me disguised as a newspaper journalist. I've participated in prominent space explorations over the past 15 years at least. Many of these you will have never heard of due to their covert nature.
And welcome everybody to a brand new podcast called Starlight Network. One night as a very little boy, I looked at my window beside my bed, seeing something I've never seen before. A big bright light speeding through the sky like a weird satellite going out of complete control. The time I thought what I really saw was a meteor crashing to Earth. Turns out that the big bright light, as a matter of fact, a shiny glimmer ray. Starlight, not that I imagined a starlight shooting through the sky, a starlight. After my experience, I intend to tell that story to you. Starlight Network. The following program is classified adults only. Contents and subjects contain statistical information regarding supernatural events that are scary for children and some certain young adults. We are going to be talking about supernatural disturbances during space exploration missions, UFO sightings, haunted houses, unexplained disappearances, ghost encounters, poltergeists, conspiracy theories in history, and espionage. It is going to be our duties to investigate and substantiate the truth hiding in plain sight of each subject, which we tend to report individually and collectively. We are going to be interviewing some people associated with these topics, Australian and international both, about not only their involvement in these individual subjects or their responsibilities, but also people who are trying really hard to substantiate the truth about these subjects like we are.
Hopefully together we can shed some light on these events and bring the truth forward once and for all. The subject we will be covering today in episode 1 is the strange and enigmatic story of Bob Lazar. The Accumulator and myself will enlighten you, our listeners, about who Bob Lazar is and why he has become such a fascinating figure.
The reason why I consider Bob Lazar to be such a peculiar and enigmatic individual is because of what he has been substantiating independently to the press, starting on May 15, 1989, about experimenting and reverse engineering alien spacecraft technology, particularly anti-gravity propulsion systems, at a classified military base 24 kilometers south of Area 51 in Groom Lake, Nevada, called S4. The way he was speaking it out back then, he seemed to be twisting some facts about his experience working at S4. In every news interview, Bob Lazar says he doesn't believe in the concept of UFOs. How is this part supposed to make sense as he is telling the truth about working with alien spacecraft components at S4? Was he coerced by the government to work in this area despite his disbelief? Even when he was under extraordinary pressures and threats made by government officials to remain silent about it.
This is definitely a story that needs further investigation. Let's look into his background. First of all, he is a multi-talented scientist, physicist, chemist, engineer, and car designer, whose basic specialty during childhood was conducting experiments with mini, hydrogen-fueled engine boosters on billy carts, cars, and bikes, particularly his invention of the jet car. He replaced the exhaust pipe with a jet engine propulsion system. This car, that he used to drive to work, led to him getting a job at Area 51, thanks to the support of Dr. Edward Teller, father of the hydrogen bomb.
Bob Lazar rose to prominence working at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, working on nuclear weapons development, among other things. He had a high interest in being a part of the Strategic Defense Initiative, better known as the Star Wars program. So beginning in June of 1982, he began working at Area 51, specifically a subset of this top-secret military base known as S4. One exciting fact about Bob Lazar is the way he commuted to work. Every day he got flown in from McCarran Airport in downtown Las Vegas to the airbase at Area 51. He was flown in with private airline Janet Airlines. Not only this, when he arrived at work, he had to operate an identification device to allow his access to the top secret base. This device collected blood from the hand in order to authenticate identity. One of his main duties was reverse engineering, testing and experimenting with alien spacecraft components, particularly with antimatter reactors and gravity amplifiers.
Where on Earth did these antimatter reactors and gravity amplifiers come from, I hear you ask? Well, they didn't actually come from Earth at all. They were alien spacecraft. They came from a star system called Zeta Reticuli, and Bob Lazar worked on them and experimented with them. It's considerably imperative that we discuss these alien spacecraft components because we're not even sure what they could be capable of for NASA and SpaceX for future explorations in our solar system and beyond. Accumulator, I think it'd be great if you could explain to me and our listeners exactly how these discoveries worked and why they could be so groundbreaking for future space exploration.
Bob not only read about alien spacecraft while working there, he was also shown 9 flying discs that were of extraterrestrial origin stored in a hangar. Bob Lazar described with great accuracy the anti-gravity propulsion system on the spacecraft. Here is Bob himself talking about this spacecraft.
Underneath this floor, there are three large cylindrical devices. These are on mounts that allow them to completely swivel up to 180 degrees and in 360 degree rotation. Directly above each one is a small rectangular object. This is on the floor above. And these are the gravity amplifiers themselves. Looking down from the top, you'd have the center. In the very center, there is a small reactor. Surrounding this, in 3 equally spaced areas, are the amplifiers. So this is looking at it sideways, this is looking at it down from the top. And under these amplifiers, underneath, on the floor below, are the gravity emitters. So it's the reactor here, powering the gravity amplifiers. Gravity amplifiers output goes into the gravity emitters at the bottom, and the resulting gravity beam or anti-gravity wave can be pretty much put anywhere you want to.
And how exactly did this work to propel the craft along?
Well, Astronaut, unlike science fiction movies from the 1950s, these craft traveled belly first. The gravity emitters could swivel 180 degrees, allowing the craft to fly along, leave the atmosphere and turn its belly to its destination. The gravity amplifiers concentrate on the destination, and that is how it proceeds. Bob Lazar also had research that he had been ordered to do about when a spacecraft with anti-gravity capabilities travels over the event horizon of a black hole. Space can bend or fold. When you reach the other side, it unfolds and space gets back to normal.
It's pretty incredible to hear about such technology even existing, Accumulator. You mentioned there was a reactor involved in the anti-gravity propulsion system. How exactly did this reactor power itself?
Bob Lazar revealed that it was element 115, otherwise known as unum pentium, which was used as a fuel to power the reactors of the craft. Element 115 was far too heavy to be naturally synthesized on Earth, so it had to come from somewhere else. A huge amount of this unknown element was recovered from the craft. This element has since been utilized in space travel, even sending Voyager 1 into space on September the 5th, 1977.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be revealing more incredible details about Bob Lazar's crusade to expose this information to the public right after this short ad break.
It's totally uneven through history that there were always more men than women who doing science fiction writing, and it's been that way for years. From this year on, it's time to make a change. To all the people who want to do science fiction or people with the passion to read science fiction, it is greatly imperative that we read science fiction novels that are written specifically by women. Why? Because we need to encourage and implore women of all ages and all kinds to do science fiction. Women like Mary Shelley, J.K. Rowling, Ursula K. Le Guin, Octavia E. Butler, Anne Rice, and D.C. Fontana. We need to read all their stories in order for us to build an enormous population of women science fiction writers. Let's get reading.
Welcome back to Starlight Network Episode 1. We are chronicling the strange and enigmatic life of Bob Lazar. Before the break, we revealed astonishing details about alien spacecraft components. It's all extremely fascinating. Now we'll uncover the details of how Bob Lazar revealed this information to the public.
Bob Lazar exposed this information to the public. It was reported on the news, and it was the very first time in history that Area 51 was exposed. On May the 15th, 1989, he appeared on Eyewitness News as a dark shadow under a fake name, just Dennis, no surname.
It seems that he was appearing on this program anonymously to try to protect himself.
That is a possibility that we're digging into, yes. It's a treasure hunt all over this story. We speculate that Bob Lazar was trying to protect himself from any danger by the government. He was talking about the 9 spacecraft of extraterrestrial origin that he was studying under the secrecy oath of Area 51 and S4. He revealed information about the antimatter reactors and gravity amplifiers to the public. This was shocking yet exciting. To the government, it was a violation of the Freedom of Information Act. The government ordered law enforcement officials to put up wanted posters of this individual. The government found out his name and it was reported to the news. It was an attempt to turn people Bob Lazar knew against him.
There were signs that Bob Lazar was being targeted for assassination. Coming home from work one night in his car, a handgun was fired from the car opposite, puncturing one of his tires. As a result, he turns to his friend Mario Santa Cruz to learn how to use an Israeli Uzi 9mm machine pistol to defend himself. They traveled together in the Nevada desert to find secluded locations for target practicing with the pistol, away from the prying eyes of government officials. This shows that Bob Lazar was living in fear for what he had exposed to the public. So we can say that Bob Lazar's plan to remain anonymous had completely backfired and he was publicly identified. No wonder he wanted to hide his identity when he appeared on Eyewitness News. But as we're about to find out, this was only just the start.
That's absolutely right. In 1990, a Japanese reporter by the name of Norio Hayakawa heard Bob on the radio while working his day job in a mortuary. He found Bob Lazar's story very fascinating and, having no television experience, contacted the popular UFO magazine, MU, who immediately took interest. The Japanese television station Nippon also contacted Bob Lazar, and even flew him to Japan to conduct an interview which was broadcast all over Asia. All of this media attention further thrust Bob into limelight, which brought more attention from government officials. He was being investigated for what he had been reporting to the press. Military personnel arrived at his house, and government officials with different initials were presently at the house with them too. The Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, the Department of Defense, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They were all at his house that time in February of 1990. They were asking multiple questions about his projects at home and about what he had been telling the press. They were all very angry at him.
He was investigated for other things too, relating to what he was working on at his house. The government were informed that Bob Lazar had begun manufacturing his own antimatter reactors in his bedroom and tore his house apart to search for substances of alien origin. He had several different projects and he worked on individual components in individual parts of his house. The jet dragster which he worked on in his garage was a very dangerous science project which could have caught fire in his house, so he was working on some intensely dangerous projects. Why do you think Bob Lazar was working on a jet dragster and antimatter reactor in his home?
I don't know if it's okay to speculate about this, but there is a possibility he might have been building a spaceship on his own. Not only this, but a new future on Earth. This could be something that Bob Lazar's not telling us about. He might have also wanted to see what space was like outside of Earth. We just don't know for sure.
What we do know for sure is that Bob Lazar's story is one of the most compelling instances of alien technology discovery. His accounts certainly do sound legitimate, and all of the subsequent suffering he went through in order to expose the truth gives further credence to his story.
As you can see, Bob Lazar is truly fascinating. I think he's one of the most mysterious and enigmatic characters out there that we have ever investigated in our entire career in podcasting.
And this is only just the start. Thanks so much for sharing this story today, Accumulator.
My pleasure, Astronaut. And Bob, if you're listening in to this, do care to have the emancipation to talk to us anytime you want. That's if you're okay with it, and if much more safer from the American government. We're here at Starlight Network want to reveal as much detail as possible about cases such as the incredible story of Bob Lazar. Each week we will tell stories revealing secrets about space, supernatural events, and conspiracies.
Tune in next week for another exciting and mysterious expose here on
Starlight Network! One night as a very little boy, I looked at my window beside my bed, seeing something I'd never seen before. A big bright light speeding through the sky like a weird satellite going out of complete control. The time I thought what I really saw was a meteor crashing to Earth. Turns out that the big bright light, as a matter of fact, a shiny glimmer ray. Starlight, not that I imagine a starlight shooting through the sky, a starlight. After my experience, I intend to tell that story to you. Starlight.